Welcome back to NTV News First Edition. We are 10 days into spring, and while the weather has not always been spring-like, the idea of longer, warmer days is enough to perk us up a little. To talk more about our mood and spring is Dr. Janine Hubbard with this edition of Get Psyched with Dr. Janine. It's great to see you.
Well, likewise.
Dr. Janine, many people report feeling happier, having more energy in the spring. Why is that?
Well, of course, we have to remember it is Newfoundland and Labrador, which means we get a number of false springs, and we build up our expectations and hopes only to, have some less spring-like weather. But for most of us, we've talked before a lot, actually, about the effect of sunlight on our mood. In particular, one of the neurotransmitters that's called serotonin, which generally elevates our mood. So the more sun exposure we have, that's going to kind of perk us up a little bit. The other thing that happens is because we have more daylight into the evenings, we're more inclined to, well, do more things, to get outside, as opposed to coming home at 4:30 and it's dark and thinking, is it bedtime yet? We're more like, okay, let's go for a walk. Let's go, maybe do some work in the garden. Let's socialize a little bit. So all of those are things that are certainly going to help perk up our moods and, make us really look forward to moving forward into the spring.
Do all of us feel better in spring?
No, I wish that was the case. And that's one of the things I really wanted to highlight today is for a number of people, spring actually brings on or worsens some mental health symptoms. In particular, we know that individuals with bipolar disorder are far more at risk of manic episodes in the spring. And unfortunately, we also know that the suicide rate increases in the spring months, contrary to what, a lot of people think. So we are very worried about why some of these things are happening. We don't fully understand it, but there's some thought, again, it makes sense, the increase in activity level. Unfortunately, for someone who's been feeling really depressed, they actually haven't had the energy to put a plan into place, and unfortunately that elevated energy can sometimes activate people. What we also see is, kind of that missing out, whereas everyone else is excited and activated and energized, and individuals with depression are just not feeling that and not having that increase in energy. So that discrepancy can make things feel a lot worse. And believe it or not, there is some research going on that's linking some of the pollens and allergic reactions to some of our mental health triggers. There's some thought that that autoimmune response, our body's overreaction and inflammation can also play a factor in aggravating some mental health symptoms, including depression and some anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Janine, what is the take home then from all of this?
If you're someone who's energized, get out, enjoy it, do some spring cleaning, get some extra exercise and fresh air, and maybe some socially distanced socialization. If you know someone who has a history of bipolar or depression or perhaps previous suicide ideation, make sure you're reaching out to them. And if you are someone who has a history of some of those symptoms, please make sure you're reaching out for help. I know it sometimes feels counterintuitive this time of year because I should be feeling great. Everyone else is. We know that it's a really hard time for some people, so please know that there is help available and make sure you're reaching out.
And we do have numbers, the mental health crisis line on our screen right now.
Perfect.
Dr. Janine Hubbard, thank you so much for coming in, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tony.